Hello, welcome to News Central. This is Beyond the Continent. I am Binga Aboroa, and these are the headlines. These are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. United States President-elect Donald Trump has been sentenced to an unconditional discharge in the New York hush money case, making him the first president to have been sentenced for criminal conviction once he's sworn into office on January the 20th. The unconditional discharge handed down by the state judge Juan Merchan allows the conviction on 34 counts of falsifying business records to stand with no further penalties such as jail time. The sentencing was allowed to go forward after the Supreme Court decided 5-4 to reject Trump's request to drop the proceeding. Trump said he thought it was a fair decision and referred to possible further appeals such as of the verdict. Trump was convicted in May of falsifying records related to hush money that his then attorney, Michael Cohen, paid adult film star Stormy Daniels in the closing days of the 2016 presidential election. Daniels testified that she had a sexual encounter with Trump in 2006, which he had denied. Join us live to make sense of the judgment and its impact in the world's democracy. We are now being joined by a lead faculty member in Rome Business School, Dr. Lambert Ofegbu, and also a global affairs analyst, Godson Azu. Dr. Lambert joins us from Bradford in the United Kingdom, while Godson Azu joins us from Peterborough. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on the news. I'd like to start with Godson Azu. Could you kindly walk us through this judgment and let us know what your opinion is? What do you make of this landmark judgment that we just heard in the United States earlier today with regards to Donald Trump's conviction?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening to you and to all the viewers out there. My pleasure being here again this evening. This is not surprising. Obviously, everywhere around the world, I'm sure many watchers and observers, political, diplomatic, business and civil people all over the world would have been sitting back trying to hear the outcome of this ongoing legal battle for the last 3 or 3.5 years between Donald Trump and the state. And it's quite unprecedented and a highly controversial case. But at the same time, we all recognize the fact that Mr. Trump himself, Mr. President-elect, has always been a controversial individual. For the last probably 30, 40 years now, he's been going through all kinds of legal tussles in the United States, from the period he was declared bankrupt and all kinds of cases involving marital or women gender issues and his business as a whole. Obviously, this is a landmark case in the sense that it's the first of its kind anywhere around the world, and most especially a country like the United States of America, which is supposed to be a symbol.
Thank you very much, Godson. I would like to bring in Dr. Lambert Ofegbu into the conversation. Dr. Lambert, Godson just described today's judgment as unprecedented, and we've been hearing reactions from all over the world in line with that. My question to you, Dr. Ofegbu, is how might this conviction affect the United States' global reputation, especially when it comes to efforts of advocacy for transparency and anti-corruption, knowing that they have a sitting president who is a convicted felon? Okay, we're having some technical issues with Dr. Lambert Ofuegbu's connection. We'll get back to him. So I'll just direct that question to Godson. Godson, in your earlier submission, you did mention that this conviction was unprecedented. Now, how will this judgment affect the United States reputation globally, knowing how so many people look up to the USA as a beacon of democracy and human rights, and how will it affect them when it comes to advocacy for transparency and anti-corruption?
Is indeed a judgment that has come to prove the to prove the relevance of the rule of law in any democratic state, and for every government to be able to respect the principles of the rule of law and justice in their country or in their domain. But the fact here is that the United States law and its justice system is a bit complicated in terms of the fact that unlike other countries where you cannot assume public office or be elected into any public positions when you are being convicted of a felony or crime of any nature or kind, or being sentenced to even a suspended sentence to jail time. Prevents you from running for a public office. But that's not the case in the United States. So it gives that window whereby there's a kind of, do I call it a kind of a lacuna in terms of observations or making some conservations on the outcome of this judgment, on how the rest of the world will take it. Because even though Donald Trump is being convicted for a crime and sentenced to a suspended sentencing or a kind of a situation where he doesn't have to serve the sentence or pay a fine for it or serve any kinds of matter thereof with regards to this to the conviction. Gives other countries a complicated way of judging the situation in dealing with America or the United States or the president himself when he assumes office. But that not be withstanding, the whole thing comes about how do they now go ahead trusting Mr. President Donald Trump's judgment and actions going forward. Because having been convicted of lying or falsifying or forging documents to cover up a particular matter of importance and being able to stand within a meeting of a group of community of countries, representations, and negotiating matters that will be of a good benefit to the United States will become a very difficult issue for the other parties to actually have a 100% trust and confidence in his judgment and actions or his decisions that he has to take. But never mind,
Okay.
also, like I may say, Mr. Trump is a very controversial individual.
Thank you very much. Just hold your thoughts there for a second, Godson. So I'd like to bring in Dr. Lambert Ofuegbu into the conversation. Now, Dr. Lambert, how would this status, this new status, having a United States president, something we haven't seen before, it's quite unprecedented, a convicted felon, how would it affect his presidency domestically and internationally?
Well, it has to be a very big challenge because, you know, how would a president of United States of America be seen, you know, from the eyes of the public? Yeah, how do I put it? I remember one of the James Hadley chess I read, when I was a teenager. He who lives in a glass house does not throw stones, and goldfish has no hiding place. So it's really, really, really a very big challenge. But let's see how he wriggles out of it. And let's equally see the power of opposition and how things unfold. But it's really, really, really very unfortunate.
Now, stay with you, Dr. Lambert. Let's bring this back home to Africa. I mean, we've seen democracy work, and we've also seen the separation of powers in the United States with no due influence from the executive. When would we get to a point in our democratic experience in Nigeria, for example, where we'll see that, court rulings are followed to the letter, and the law will take its course regardless of the status of the offender? Are we walking? Do you see us moving towards that?
Frankly, I'm not seeing it. Does not mean that I shouldn't create the necessary balance. We should not lose sight of the fact that U.S. democracy is about, if I'm not mistaken, about 230 years old. Meaning that they would have gone through, all sorts of things like the way we are going. But I believe what took them to this maturity, this level of maturity now, is persistence and what I call incremental gains. If I bring it down to Africa, to Nigeria, I am not seeing that. You see, in as much as yes, US is matured, it has to take a process, and in that process, we have to see us moving, not 2 steps backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. And if you see what has happened in our democratic balance recently in the last 8 years, it's like we are losing traction. And when I discuss with my colleagues, I say, well, it is not a problem, graduating from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, but you need to come to ground zero and now chart out your improvement plan on how you want to improve and graduate. And once we see that, even in quality management in anything, you see, yes, we are making progress. But a situation whereby from ground zero, from zero level, we are going deeper down, is a call for concern.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution, Dr. Lambert Ofwebu, who joins us from Bradford in the United Kingdom, and also Godson Azu, Global Affairs Analyst. It was a pleasure having you both join me on the news. Thank you. Still on the hush money conviction of the United States President Donald Trump, we also have a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mohammed Indarani, who joins us from the nation's capital to discuss this latest development. One welcome to you, Mr. Indarani. What's your assessment of today's judgment?
Good evening. My assessment, based on the said judgment, I think it's a very serious challenge for President-elect of the United States of America, Mr. Trump. However, it depends on the circumstances. In the United States of America, where the understanding of people are so high, and the society is well sanitized, highly educated, it could be a very serious challenge in a setting of society like United States of America, because several people will have a belief that, well, if a incoming president is already convicted for a particular type of offense, especially when we are talking about falsification of a document, It is a very huge challenge. But however, I think it does not obligate him from proving a point. Proving a point is that the conviction that was meted on him was unconditional. Do you understand that?
Yes.
So it will take effect. It will not take effect now. It has to take effect probably maybe after he might have finished his tenure. And by the time he did what is expected of him to do as a president of the United States of America, and people see that he had performed fantastically well, and he did what is expected of him to do and work within the voyage of law to ensure that you understand what I'm telling you. His image is redeemed based on his performances and the rules, understanding of performances in rules of law. So I think it could change the mindset of some people by saying that since he has been convicted, you cannot throw a stone on a glass, just like what my doctor has said. Actually, it's going to be a very big challenge for him. But since this is just a very unique judgment that had never happened on several occasions in the whole world like that, so it is better that before we move further to give a complete analysis, we should be able to observe and see by the times it take over the power, how it plays and how the general society, particularly in Europe, will look at it and then maybe give it an assessment. Then as he is going on, we will keep on seeing how the situations will unfold. But for now, I think it will be more premature to understand actually how it will play over there. But taking that thing back to Africa.
Now, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Ndirani. Just trying to make the best use of the short time we have here. What do you make of the United States Supreme Court judges who damned the consequences and to, like you mentioned, it's unprecedented to sentence a president-elect, to convict the judge sentencing a president-elect?
Yes, I think that is rules of law. Nobody is above the law. And I believe that once there is a fact on ground that will warrant so to be done, I think what they did, the consequence of it, I don't think there's any consequence on it because it is a rules of law. Once there is a basis of doing that within the voyage of law, I think there's nothing stop the justice of Supreme Court to perform their official functions. So the issue of consequence of it is nothing to be worried about because they ought to have been impartial, which of course you understand the judgment has already been given and based on the position of law as canvassed before them. So I don't think there is any consequences on the Supreme Court judge because there is what we call separation of power. He cannot use his executive power to come and remove a justice of a Supreme Court. And likewise, you understand Supreme Court justices without undergoing all the process of law, just like the way it is done.
As it should be done in a democracy. Now, finally, Mr. Ndirani, before I let you go, the judgment was on this. What would you say about the unconditional discharge caveat of the judgment? Critics will argue and view the prosecutor's recommendation as showing undue deference to the presidency. How should you balance between respect for the office of the president and treatment under the law so that everyone is equal? Because people have, it's very hard for convicts, for people that have been convicted to get jobs, ordinary citizens, and now we've seen a sort of deference for the office of the president, a sort of soft landing.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Your voice is keeping, please. Can you just come over again?
Okay, to repeat the question, I say, what would you say about the unconditional discharge caveat of the judgment? Is the judiciary giving too much deference to the presidency? And is this a sort of soft landing for President elect Trump?
Yes, since they say it is unconditional convictions, I think that cannot stop him from taking his function as a president. It can still not, that cannot obligate him from being sworn in as a president, because he won the election. I think you get my point. He has won the elections, and then that cannot stop him from taking the oath of office. So, and maybe probably after he has taken the oath of office, and then after his tenure, then probably that can still play around. But for now, I don't think that can also stop him from taking the oath of office.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndirani,
Are you there?
Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time and contribution. Do appreciate it. Thank you. The United States Departments of Treasury and State applied new sanctions on Russia's oil production and exports on Friday. The sanctions targeted oil companies, 183 ships, dozens of oil traders, insurance companies, and energy officials. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that the sanctions build on and strengthen the United States' effort to disrupt Russia's energy revenues. It is also designating senior officials at Rosatom, Russia's state atomic energy corporation, as well as numerous Russia-based oilfield service providers. The sanctions include vertically integrated Russian-based oil companies Gazprom Neft and Surgutneft Treasury Secretary said Britain is joining the United States in the new sanctions efforts against those Russian oil producers. United States sanctions also targeted Russia-based maritime insurance providers Ingostrak Insurance Company and Alpha Strakhofani Group. A U.S. court has temporarily blocked Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the suspected mastermind of 9/11, from making a guilty plea deal, which would have allowed him to avoid the death penalty following a last-minute intervention from the Biden administration. Mohammed, who is charged with planning the al-Qaeda terrorist attack that killed almost 3,000 people on 11th of September 2001, was due to enter his plea on Friday in a military court in Guantanamo Bay, the U.S. naval base in Cuba. But the District of Columbia Federal Appeals Court ruled on Thursday that this could not happen. The panel said the decision was only temporary, adding that a final decision will be made once the arguments have been fully considered. And that's all on Beyond the Continent. You can watch the News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 4274, AVO TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Benga Aporoa.